The first Rage didn't deliver what was expected from the marketing campaign. While the gameplay for Rage was adequate, it was also hyped up as this impressive narrative campaign. Instead, what gamers got was a short and unappealing adventure that starts up well but died at the end. With Rage 2, the developers decided to make the story an afterthought and double down on action and lots of explosions, providing a lot of ways to kill your enemies. But those who invest into Rage 2 better be prepared to do the same thing over and over again. Rage 2 has you control a walker, male or female depending on your choice, donned in the armor of a ranger, and named for an elite soldier within this world. Walker is one of a handful of survivors of a military base called Vinewood. The Authority has resurfaced after years following the events of the first Rage and are causing havoc across the wasteland. After killing most of your people, you decide to take revenge on their leader, General Cross, by restarting an abandoned plan called Project Dagger, designed to end the Authority. To do this, you must recruit 3 people to your cause who worked on the project before it went dark, all while weakening control of the Authority, mutants, and bandit gangs that now inhabit the wasteland. The story has a solid edifice, but doesn't excel beyond mediocrity. You have your standards close calls, betrayals, cocky bad guys, and death of allies throughout the adventure. It's definitely a step up from the original game, but that's not saying much. Consider that the first game is remembered mostly for that awful ending. Walker is as generic as you get. She or he is an able-bodied soldier able to complete suicide missions with ease and is just looking out for revenge against the Authority. The primary antagonist, General Cross, is as one-dimensional as you get. He just wants to kill everyone basically. His hubris is almost palpable and he believes everything he's doing is right. That's really it. General Cross is your generic bad guy, and he doesn't evolve into anything really meaningful throughout Rage 2. Same thing for Walker. Walker wants revenge, Walker is going to get revenge. Most of Rage 2 has you clearing camps, opening arcs, destroying giant death laser towers, and collecting materials to do it all over again. The world itself is diverse, with each area having a specific theme, such as dense woodlands or a giant desert. It seems like a giant shame to have such an incredible array of locations begging to be explored only to find out there is nothing there unless the game has a specific mission linked to that area. The missions quickly become dull and repetitive since regardless of where you go, you'll just end up doing the same thing. Many games combat this by providing new items to obtain and infusing unique story missions into the action. The Division 2, for example, provides new gear and items to collect, while Far Cry New Dawn has story missions that offer unique things such as areas to explore. Rage 2 doesn't really do either of these things. The new areas do offer something nice to look forward to, but the game already tells you what your reward will be. Some offer specific resources, and the arcs provide either new weapons or abilities. There's really no mystery to complete each of these various objectives, and most of them are streamlined experiences, which loses much of their appeal of finding new and unexplored areas. In fact, much of the game will be dedicated to locating purple crates and arc chests. Unfortunately, you cannot ignore those chests because you need the supplies inside to not only purchase items, but upgrade Walker. They become requirements in order to progress through the game, or you'll be at a severe disadvantage. The leveling system is also very specific. You unlock schematics to improve your items, Feltrite, which is a unique material, is used to upgrade your weapons and Walker's abilities, and projects provide new access to certain perks. All of these can obtain from grinding out optional objectives, with projects in particular requiring you to complete the missions linked to that person. It's a bit of a grind as these projects do require you to complete them in order to progress through the story, but a bulk of Rage 2 is about completing repetitive missions, so if that doesn't sound like an exciting journey, you won't enjoy Rage 2 at all. Weapons themselves include the standard pistol, shotgun, and rocket launcher, coupled with some supernatural abilities such as dashing, rushing, and a ground pound. How you use these abilities is up to you. Thankfully, while the objectives rarely change, the enemy variety is healthy. You fight a collection of humans, mutants, and cyborgs to kill. Some are armored, others charge without any care, and some are mini-bosses that offer intense challenges due to their size and strength. During harder modes, using some of the more aggressive techniques are unwise, but Rage 2 rarely restricts you from exercising your freedom of movement. Rage 2 does encourage the use of momentum, but it's not enough. You are provided temporary health drops for killing enemies that must be collected before they disappear, and the lack of regenerating health outside from these health infusion packs promote the aggressive playstyle. This is further supported with your abilities and weapons that encourage close range and mid-range combat, such as dashing, speeding, and the lack of a sniper rifle. This isn't a poor idea, as it's been used in other first-person shooters very effectively. However, with Rage 2, it seems a little strange that the game doesn't encourage the idea of long-range combat. There's no sniper rifle like I stated before, there's no cloaking system, there is just an array of aggressive moves that you can use from. It also becomes a little problematic when playing on Nightmare mode when the player is encouraged to be aggressive, but at the same time that aggressive play can lead you to an early death. Another great example of using momentum as a gameplay element would be Doom. In Doom 2016, for example, the developers reduced the time needed to pick up items and needing to reload any of your weapons. In Rage 2, this becomes an issue where you have to manually pick up individual items for crafting and to promote this type of apocalyptic adventure where resources are limited and you have to collect whatever is available. The problem with that, when you have aggressive abilities and trying to encourage a fast-paced environment, even standing still for 1 second can lead to a break in the momentum. It is kind of nice that they're keeping up to the themes of the original Rage, where collecting items was necessary in order to survive the wasteland, but here it seems like they tried to combine both worlds. They try to make a fast-paced action first-person shooter, but they also try to maintain the same atmosphere of the first game with the survival aspects. So it seems that both sides were pulling at each other until eventually there was like a equal meeting ground, but it doesn't complement either side, so it makes each element suffer. Driving does play a major role in transport, but rarely do you need to dedicate yourself to your vehicle maintenance. You can store cars found in the world and only upgrade your primary car to Phoenix. With the exception of one race, there's really no reason to dedicate yourself to the vehicle combat or racing elements within the game unless you're really strapped for cash. There are optional tasks you can participate in, such as races and even a mutant deathmatch from the first game, but mostly it just serves as transport. But in a very strange development choice, you can only fast travel between major trading posts. This may seem like a very minor issue, but if you start completing optional objectives, you'll notice that you'll have to drive extensive amounts of time, and you would have saved plenty of time if you could simply fast travel to the nearest location. Unfortunately, you can't do that even if you cleared a camp full of bandits. You have to go to the trading post and drive all the way to that location, which can become incredibly frustrating. Rage 2 does look amazing. I mean, it is a AAA developed game from Avalanche Studios with help of id Software, so expecting a very poorly made game wasn't an option. Considering that Fallout 76 will never be washed off Bethesda's reputation, launching an extremely stable game was paramount for them. And fortunately, Rage 2 is stable, with the exception of one hard crash and occasional technical issues, which happens in open world games. I found really little problems in the graphics, sound, and technical strength of the game. It was a beautiful game with lush dashes of color throughout the game. It reminded me a lot of Far Cry New Dawn in the way of how they use purple and bright colors in order to convey this sense of drug-induced atmosphere. But unlike those games like the Far Cry universe, which used a combination of these bright colors and drugs, Rage only uses bright colors, but it is appealing to look at. Where Rage 2 does excel at is the atmosphere. It's definitely distinctful and has a much more alluring feel to it than the original Rage. The original Rage was very dark and it was very much painfully comparable to other apocalyptic worlds like in the Mad Max universe, but here Rage 2 does have somewhat of a distinct feel because of its use of colorations and very cool enemy design. I will say that the character models look fantastic. I may have not remembered much of the characters within the game, but they did look very cool, especially the mutants. Those were extremely well designed, especially the mini-boss mutants, which feature some very cool mishmash of not only mutated humans, but elements of kind of funky Avatar style. The soundtrack also complements the overall atmosphere. It's very adrenaline filled. There's nothing really profound about it, but it does the job of keeping you engaged in the action, especially during high intense fights. So there's very little to complain about when it comes to the soundtrack. At its current price tag at $59.99, I can't really recommend Rage 2 to anyone except the most hardcore first-person shooter fans, and even then it would be a stretch. Maybe if the game was sold at $40 or $30, I would be much more inclined to recommend it to people, but at this point it's a very short and mediocre first-person shooter that does the job in every checkbox you can think of, but ultimately it's just a forgettable experience.
That is why you are perfect for the job. Such an expert blaster.
You knew I was gonna...
Yes. Goodbye.